Welcome back to my channel and to another FPL video which is available in podcast format. There are links in the description below. I'll be talking about the best wildcard team for Blank Gameweek 29. It is an awkward time to use the chip if I'm being completely honest. I'd rather use it in Gameweek 30 or 31 if you're planning on using it very soon. But for those of you without the free hit and that want to navigate Blank Gameweek 29 and also have a solid platform for the rest of the season, this video is certainly for you. It will be quite an underrated time to use the chip and it can still heavily pay off. I'll be talking about the best 50-man squad and talking about some alternatives as we go along. Be sure to smash the like button and subscribe if you're new. Leave a 5-star review in Spotify and all the other platforms that this video is available in terms of podcast format, and also subscribe to the channel on YouTube and everything else that you can do, like sharing the video, also becoming a patron or channel member, joining the Discord server, the FPL League, and also checking out Draft Town. There is a link in the description below. Without further ado, let's jump straight into this video. David Raya was the hero for Arsenal on Tuesday night in the Champions League, making 2 saves in the penalty shootout versus Porto and having a solid performance in the 120 minutes just before that. And in terms of FPL points per match, only Alisson averages more than David Raya, who gets 4 per game. And with those fixtures coming up after Blank Gameweek 29 where Arsenal don't feature and Man City away in Gameweek 30, you could start David Raya in every single game week from 31 until the end of the season, and current projections from FPL Team and Planet FPL indicate that Arsenal could double in Gameweek 34. So David Raya is a solid option to say the least, very dependable, very good chance of keeping clean sheets. He can get the odd saves, and as he's demonstrated in the Premier League and Champions League this season, he can save penalties, which could also boost the score massively in certain game weeks. And speaking of penalty savers, the last goalkeeper is Areola, who features in Blank Gameweek 29, and he also averages 4 points per game. So Raya and Areola are in the podium of the best goalkeepers in terms of points per 90 minutes, alongside Alisson, who's in top spot. A double up in Arsenal defensively is viable long term, but this is really a move from Gameweek 31 and beyond. I don't like the next 2 gameweeks for Arsenal, a blank and Manchester City away, so that's where the likes of Gabriel and Raya are avoidable, but you want them in place for the long term. And you could also consider a double up in the defence specifically with Gabriel and Saliba or Ben White, and you can go for a different goalkeeper instead of David Raya. But I do like this balance, and Gabriel has the most attacking threat of any Arsenal defender, but Ben White has recently been getting the assists. He got 2 against Brentford, so you can certainly consider him as a differential. And I have to say, Ben White has been incredible since that winter break in Dubai, where Arsenal have come back a completely different team, renewed, full of confidence and also belief. Now, the next 2 defenders are blanking in Gameweek 29 as well, and that includes Connor Bradley, who should be in the starting 11 for the time being until Trent Alexander-Arnold returns. But I think Bradley could be a sensational budget enabler who's got bonus points potential. He can keep clean sheets and also get assists. So I think Connor Bradley could be a great option. He's been actually doing very well in Trent's absence. It's like Liverpool haven't missed him too much, but of course, once Trent is available, I would fit for Connor Bradley's minutes, and that would no longer be a viable option in FPL. But I would go for Connor Bradley and another budget defender who is going to be very safe for a long period of time, and that's going to be Malo Gusto. And Chelsea are set to have 2 doubles in the remainder of the season, so I think Gusto could offer tremendous value, and going for 2 Chelsea players in Gusto and Palmer is the way to go and tackle the rest of this Premier League campaign. Now, there are 2 defender slots left. We need to have some defenders who actually feature in Blank Gameweek 29, and that's what I'm going to go for. Now, you can go for an Alfie Doughty to have a full defence in Gameweek 29 and also get 11 players for this blank, and that's completely up to you. I don't necessarily disagree so much, but with Alfie Doughty, you'd only start him this week. I'd probably bench him against Tottenham next week, and I don't trust Luton Town defensively. They were 3-0 up, courtesy of a Doughty assist as well. It was all going great for them, but Bournemouth made a comeback, won 4-3 in the end, and Luton Town can't be trusted defensively. But I'm going to go for these 2 defenders here, and they include Reguilon, who I think is going to be a very solid option for Gameweek 29. He's currently flagged, but Thomas Frank said after the Arsenal game that Reguilon should be available for Burnley in Blank Gameweek 29. So I'm very optimistic about the Spaniards' chances. And speaking of Spaniards, the other defender I'm going to go for is Pedro Porro, who's got a great fixture in Gameweek 30 against Luton Town at home. And Spurs' fixtures are quite good up until Gameweek 34. Now, they will have doubles later in the season, but the fixtures are absolutely awful. Newcastle away, Arsenal at home, Man City at home, and Liverpool away. That would be a great time to start to diminish these Spurs assets, go for a double or triple up right now, and then maybe trim it down to 1 when we get to that very tough stage for Tottenham Hotspur. But this defensive 5, I think, could do a very good job for you in the long term. They offer great value. All of them are capable of bonus points and attacking returns. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. I have included Leon Bailey. You can also go for Douglas Luiz to cover that Aston Villa midfielder in Game Week 29 and 30, but really it's because of the blank to have as many players as possible, and I think Bailey could be a great option and very underrated in this game week. But if I'm being completely honest, he's not going to be a long-term hold, and that's why I will compensate for Leon Bailey with a season keeper for me. He's been incredible in the Premier League this season, and the points returns aren't stopping. Only Mohamed Salah has more double-digit hauls this season, and I'm talking about none other than Cole Palmer, who's on penalties. He got a 13-pointer against Newcastle in double Game Week 28, and honestly, he's one of the best options we've ever had for his price. He started the season at 5 million, and he has absolutely blown that away in terms of value and FPL returns. So I think going for these two budget midfielders could certainly work out for you. If you want someone a bit more nailed on than Leon Bailey, then Douglas Luiz is the one to go for. He's a bonus points machine and on penalties, so that could be the best pick for you, especially if you're planning on starting this Aston Villa midfielder in Game Week 30 with that home fixture against Wolves. But from Game Week 31, when they face Man City away, Aston Villa's fixtures are quite poor until the end of the season. They're bottom of the FDR in Draft Town, Fantasy Football Hub, and all these algorithms from that period, and that's where you could sell all Aston Villa assets. But next up is going to be James Maddison, a great option for the next two games specifically. He has an incredible record against Fulham. He has never blanked in the Premier League at Craven Cottage, and he's never blanked away from home this season. He's averaging 7.6 points per game in away matches. So I think James Maddison could be a great captaincy contender this week, and even against Luton Town at home, I'd be very happy to keep him, and I think he could do a great job for your FPL teams. The same goes for Heung-min Son, who delivered 17 points against Aston Villa, and whilst his record isn't great against Fulham specifically, he got a nice return in the reverse fixture this season, and going for these three Spurs players in Pedro Porro, Maddison and Son could really pay off in the next two game weeks, and even up until Game Week 34, you could start to sell one of them just beforehand for the likes of Salah or other midfielders I'm going to cover very soon, like Phil Foden. But ultimately, I wouldn't mind keeping that Spurs triple up until Game Week 34, and I think they could really do a great job for you, and it could be a bit of a differential in the grand scheme of things in terms of keeping them for that long. Now, the final midfielder is going to be Jarrod Bowen, who you could keep in the long term, but I really see him as a medium or to short-term punt, and he would be a placeholder for the likes of Mohamed Salah. We're going to have a lot of money left in the bank because we have no Salah in this team, no Erling Haaland, and that leaves things very spicy for the front three I'm going to discuss for the best wildcard team. I've mentioned it a few times in recent videos. It will be a very difficult decision to make when we have to sell Ollie Watkins potentially around Game Week 31 onwards. You have to prioritise and make sacrifices. Do you want to have a midfield 5 of Son, Salah, Saka, Foden and Palmer? If so, you have to make a sacrifice somewhere, and it might mean no Erling Haaland or Ollie Watkins, but I would go for Watkins, no doubt about it, on the wild card or with your normal teams. He is a must-have for the next two game weeks, but after that, I think Watkins becomes disposable, and you could replace him with the likes of Ivan Toney, who has great fixtures from Game Week 32 until the end of the season. And speaking of which, I'd also go for Ivan Toney, but it's worth mentioning he's blanked in 4 games in a row, and he's been quite poor. Even the underlying numbers aren't that impressive. He came back with a bang with returns against Nottingham Forest and Tottenham, but after that, the returns have slowly died down, and he hasn't been that impressive FPL wise, but he's a great penalty taker. Everything goes through him, and I think he's kind of due a return, so to speak, and Burnley away is a great opportunity for Toney to break that goal-scoring drought. Now, the final forward, this is where things get very interesting. I think Carlton Morris is better for Game Week 29 specifically, but because of Luton Town's fixtures, and I wasn't really intrigued or impressed by Morris's performance in double Game Week 28, I would actually consider a budget forward who's got a tough game this week, but great fixtures in the long term, and that could be Muniz. Now, bear in mind that Fulham could blank in Game Week 34, so that's something you have to also weigh up as well. Spurs are another team that could blank in 34, so you might have to make some transfers in the next couple of weeks or make a few changes to this wildcard squad depending on your strategy. Now, those provisional blanks and doubles are provisional. They're projected. They're not set in stone. So take it with a pinch of salt. But Muniz is incredible form. He's a budget striker. Yes, Raul Jimenez is coming back, but it's Muniz's place to lose. And I think until Muniz has a bad game, he should keep his place, and Jimenez will be on the bench. And Fulham face Sheffield United away from home in Gameweek 30. So I think Muniz could be a very underrated option for the next couple of weeks. Now, of course, if you have some concerns about Muniz starting, or you don't really trust Fulham or Muniz in particular, that's absolutely fair enough. You can go for Carlton Morris instead as a placeholder for Erling Haaland in a couple of weeks' time. But ultimately, I think in the long term, we're all going to be striving for this 5-man midfield with 2 forwards and a budget option such as Muniz in the forward line. The starting 11 speaks for itself. Areola will be in goal for Blank Gameweek 29, Pedro Porro and Reguilon as the 2 defenders, Bailey, Bowen, Maddison and Son for the midfield 4, and a front line of Muniz, Tony and Ollie Watkins. And FPL Team do suggest Son as the captain and Watkins as the vice, but they do change the projected points fairly often. The bench would be Raya, Palmer, Gabriel and Gusto. As I mentioned earlier, you can go for an Alfie Doughty instead of Bradley or Gusto, especially if we get some updates about Trent returning fairly soon from injury, and that would put Bradley's place in jeopardy. But if we look ahead to Gameweek 30 and beyond, you want to be well set up defensively and avoid booking in transfers in this position. And that's why I've gone for these defenders, because in Gameweek 30, you could easily field Areola in goal, Bradley, Pedro Porro and Gusto as the back 3, all with good fixtures at home, a midfield 4 of Salah, Maddison, Son, Palmer, and a front 3 of Muniz against Sheffield United away, Tony and Watkins. The bench would be Raya, Bailey, Reguilon and Gabriel. And as you can see, it's 1 free transfer being made, Jeroboam out for Mohamed Salah, and we still have 7 million in the bank, which can be crucial to buying back Erling Haaland. If we then look ahead to Gameweek 31, and of course we are booking in transfers even with this wildcard team, but it's a very solid plan and you've got a solid squad just in case something else arises and you've got other injury concerns that you need to deal with. Raya will be in goal in Gameweek 31 against Luton Town at home. You've also got Gabriel for that Arsenal defensive double up, Pedro Porro and Bradley, a midfield 5 of Saka, Salah, Maddison, Son and Palmer, and a front 2 of Tony and Muniz. And of course, benching Watkins doesn't sit right with me, but it is Manchester City away and he is disposable from Gameweek 31 and beyond. So Areola, Watkins, Gusto and Reguilon could be on your bench by this stage. And then in Gameweek 32, you can still have Ollie Watkins. You could even buy back Erling Haaland if you wish when Man City play Crystal Palace away. But I'm avoiding hits in these hypothetical scenarios and planned transfers. So we pretty much roll the transfer here in Gameweek 32, and then going into Gameweek 33, you finally buy back Erling Haaland for Ollie Watkins, and you also make a downgrade elsewhere in order to make that possible. So let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below about these transfer plans, and ultimately you have to make a sacrifice, and it could be Heung-min Son downgraded to Eze, who could double in Gameweek 34, and I've mentioned in recent videos like the chip strategy that Man United could double in Gameweek 34. That's still a possibility, but the current projections would have them double in Gameweek 37 instead of Gameweek 34, and that also needs to be taken into account. We'll have a much clearer picture by Gameweek 30 about the remaining doubles and blanks for the season. But as you can see, this wildcard squad sets you up very well for Gameweek 29, 30, 31, 32 and 33, and you've got a solid platform for the rest of the season and the 2 major doubles / blank game weeks that we can get in 34 and 37, not to mention the smaller double game weeks that we could get in 35 or 36. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it or found it useful, then be sure to smash the like button and subscribe for new. Let's get this video to over 200 likes and let's keep on pushing towards 23k subscribers and beyond on YouTube. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, for the latest FPL and UCL fantasy updates. Join the Discord server to be part of a great community and be up to date with everything you need to know for FPL, and also join the FPL League. There's a link to Draft Town in the description below, and also links to my podcasts on Spotify and Amazon Music. I wish you all the best of luck for FPL Gameweek 29 and the rest of the season, and I'll see you next time.